this video, I'm going to be reviewing The Pedestrian. Let's start the review. The Pedestrian is a 2D puzzle game, and man, this game is incredibly super creative with its art style and mechanics. You play as this stick figure, and you travel between signs and a few other things like blueprints. You travel between the signs like a connect the dots worksheet from school, and you have to figure out how to get to the exit door, and sometimes you need to take an item to the exit door with you. I'm pretty sure the mechanics I'm about to list are all the mechanics in the game, and if I'm wrong, then we will just say that these were the most memorable mechanics. Something that is in pretty much every puzzle in the game is doors and ladders. And a left door can only connect to a right door, and a bottom ladder can only connect to a top ladder. This is the way you travel around the puzzle after you connect the signs correctly, although I wanted to make it clear that you don't just connect the signs and then walk through. You are going to have to keep going back and forth between the signs. I think the phase through door was pretty cool, and what it did was you would put the sign with the phase through door on top of another sign and then go through the door and end up on the other sign. So that was another way you could get around the puzzles. Another mechanic that I remember is electricity. And how this worked is that there was a generator with the power, and the signs had wires on them, and when you plugged one of the signs into the generator, all of the outlets on the sign would be powered. You would then have to do something with the wires, and what I mean by that is you would have to take the wires and plug them into the outlets and power whatever it is that you need to power. The second most interesting mechanic to me was the green paint. So when you would disconnect a sign that you were standing in or interacted with, that would get reset. But with the green paint, it saves that from being reset, which I find really interesting, and I wonder how they came up with that idea. So for example, when you're standing in a sign and you put the green paint on it, and then disconnect that sign, you won't get sent back to the spawn point of that puzzle. Another example is that if you pull a lever in a sign and put the green paint on it and then disconnect it, the sign would be saved from being reset. Those are all the mechanics that I remember besides the one at the end of the game. The only negative thing I have to say is that there isn't a reset button in the pause menu or at all. So to reset a puzzle, you would have to disconnect a sign or kill yourself, and sometimes this doesn't completely reset the puzzle. And not that you can get soft locked, but I know for some people it would just be easier to reset the entire puzzle when they get stumped on trying to figure out what the solution is. I don't want to spoil what the final puzzle of the game is, but I do want to mention that I see a lot of people are wondering why they didn't use the final mechanic throughout the whole game. And I think the reason for that is because the puzzles would be a lot bigger, more complex, and especially would be more complex when and if they mix the final mechanic with other mechanics in the game. It would also take a lot more time to make each puzzle. And the thing is that Socom Arts, the developer of The Pedestrian, has 3 people working there. So I think they split the idea into 2 games, with the first game being, well, what it is, and the second game, at least I imagine they're making a second game, is going to be all about the final mechanic from the first game. One more thing I would like to mention is that the game is about 5 hours long, and it might take you less time to beat the game if you're not bad at puzzle games like me. I know the $20 price tag on this game looks very overpriced for a 5-hour long game. However, I believe that this is a very strong 5 hours, so I think it's worth the $20. And I am also in the belief that just because a game is short does not automatically mean the game is bad. I almost forgot to talk about the art style and the lore. The art style is really creative, and the reason why I think it's really creative is because, as I already established, You play as the stick figure on signs, but if you look at the backgrounds and just any of the space, literally any of it, where you can't go, you will notice the amount of detail that was put into the backgrounds. There's a city, subways, a storage container place, an office, and there's more, but I'm just giving you a few examples. The lore gets introduced at the end of the game, and it feels very revealing, and at the same time also feels like you got breadcrumbs because of the major cliffhanger, and you play with the mechanic that was used at the end of the game, and you're wondering, when's the second game going to come out? I want a second game that's all about this mechanic. I'm not going to spoil any of the lore, but that's really all I have to say about the lore. I'm giving The Pedestrian a 5 out of 5. Again, I think this is a really creative puzzle game. I hope the next project that they are working on is The Pedestrian 2. That's about it. See ya.